The movie begins with a girl named Lucy standing with her boyfriend, Richard, in front of a hotel in Taiwan. We learn that Lucy is a college student and recently met Richard at a bar. Richard asks Lucy to take a bag and deliver it to a man named Zhang, who is in the hotel. Lucy refuses, saying she was out all night and needs to rest and study. Richard insists she can't leave, which annoys her, and she tells him to deliver the bag himself. Richard explains that he has problems with Zhang, and that all she has to do is go to the reception, say she's there to meet a Mr. Zhang, and hand him the bag when she sees him. Lucy asks him to open the bag so she can see what's inside, but Richard refuses, offering her a large sum of money. She declines and says she's leaving. Suddenly, Richard surprises her by handcuffing the bag to her wrist. Furious, she demands the key, but Richard apologizes and says the key is with Zhang. He tells her she has no choice but to deliver the bag. Forced to comply, Lucy enters the hotel and goes to the reception to ask for Mr. Zhang. Richard stands outside, waving to reassure her, but is suddenly shot and killed. Lucy is horrified to see her boyfriend die in front of her. Zhang's men grab her and take her to his suite, where she sees dead bodies on the floor. Terrified and crying, she doesn't understand what's happening. Zhang emerges from a room wearing protective goggles and with blood on his hands. We learn that Zhang is a major drug dealer and gang leader. Lucy, frightened, tells him she's there to deliver the bag and begs him not to kill her. Zhang doesn't understand her since he speaks a different language, so he calls a translator and puts him on speakerphone. Lucy asks the translator to tell Zhang that she has nothing to do with it and that Richard gave her the bag to deliver. Zhang replies that he killed Richard because he didn't trust him and asks what's in the bag. She says she doesn't know. Zhang writes the number 14,040 on a piece of paper, gives it to Lucy, and tells her it's the code to open the bag. He then goes into a room to protect himself, thinking the bag contains explosives. His men take out protective shields and point their guns at Lucy, ordering her to open the bag. Terrified, Lucy opens the bag and discovers it's full of bags of a blue drug. Zhang and his men return, and they bring in an addict. They make him ingest a large quantity of the drug. The man begins to have convulsions as if he's about to die, but then he calms down and starts laughing manically until Zhang pulls out his gun and kills him. Zhang then offers Lucy a job, but she refuses and says she wants to leave. One of his men hits her hard, and she passes out. The scene shifts to a university in Paris, where a professor named Norman is giving a lecture on human brain capacity. He says that humans have evolved their brain power over the centuries, from using rocks to make fire to creating incredible inventions. Norman states that humans only use about 10% of their brain's capacity, while animals use about 5%. The only animal that has surpassed humans is the dolphin, which uses 20% of its brain. We return to Lucy, who wakes up in a hotel room bed. She discovers a wound on her abdomen. One of Zhang's men comes in, gives her clothes to wear, and takes her to Zhang. A doctor named Rend is there and tells her he operated on her. Seeing her fear, he reassures her that they didn't remove any organs. He explains that they placed a bag of the drug inside her stomach because Zhang wants her to smuggle it to a specific country in Europe. He tells her the drug is called CPH4. Zhang's men bring in 3 other addicts who also have bags of the drug inside them. They are given passports, as each of them will travel to a different European country. Ren tells them that someone will meet them upon arrival to perform surgery and retrieve the drugs. He warns them that this drug is different from any other and will revolutionize the global drug market. He also warns them that if any of them contacts the police, their entire family will be killed. Zhang's men then cover their faces and take them out of the hotel. When Lucy wakes up again, she finds herself chained to a wall in a cell. One of the gang members comes in and tries to get close to her, but she pushes his hand away with force. The man gets angry and starts hitting her in the stomach until his colleague pulls him away. Due to the beating she received, the bag of drugs inside her bursts, and a large amount of the drug spreads through her body. Suddenly, Lucy's eyes turn blue, and we realize that she has gained superpowers. This power allows her to use 20% of her brain's capacity. At the same time, Dr. Norman, in his lecture, says that if a human were to use 20% of their brain's capacity, they would be superhuman, as they would have the ability to control their body cells completely. If the percentage were to reach 40%, a person could control living things, materials, liquids, and anything else on the planet. A student asks what would happen if a person used 100% of their brain's capacity. Norman is stunned by the question and, after a moment of thought, says he has no idea what would happen. We return to Lucy, who wakes up and sits calmly in her cell. When one of the gang members enters, she looks at him with what he perceives as admiration. He puts his gun on the table and approaches her. She, however, grabs his belt, powerfully throws it to the floor, and uses it to pull the table closer and grab the gun. After freeing herself, she escapes the cell and goes out into the street. She sees two taxi drivers, shoots one of them, and forces the other to drive her to the nearest hospital. On the way, Lucy is surprised by her fighting skills and her ability to use a gun expertly, especially since she's never done anything like this before. She's even more surprised to find that she can hear people talking on the street even though they are far away. When she arrives at the hospital, she is able to understand the Chinese writing in front of her, realizing she can now speak multiple languages. Lucy enters an operating room while doctors are performing surgery on a patient. She looks at the patient's x-rays and discovers she can understand them perfectly. She realizes the patient has a rapidly spreading brain tumor. She pulls out her gun, kills the patient, and takes his place. She tells the doctor to open her stomach and remove the bag of drugs, telling him to start right away because she doesn't need anesthesia. The doctor, shocked and bewildered, complies. At that moment, Lucy uses the doctor's phone to call her mother. She tells her that she feels everything around her, like the air, gravity, and the Earth's rotation. She also says that she can remember everything that has happened to her since she was a small child. She tells her mother about playing with her cat when she was a baby and how she stayed by its side when it was sick. Her mother is surprised, saying she couldn't possibly remember those things because she was only 1 year old. Lucy thanks her for every moment she cared for her and ends the call. The doctor has now removed the bag of drugs from her stomach and tells her that it had burst, and about 5 grams had leaked into her body. She asks him how long it would take for her body to expel the substance. He asks her to tell him the name of the substance so he can answer. She tells him it's called CPH4. He explains that it's a chemical produced by a pregnant woman's body to feed the fetus in the womb. He says he heard that scientists were trying to create it but didn't expect them to succeed so quickly. As for the substance's effect on her body, he's surprised she's still alive because the amount that leaked would be enough to kill her in seconds. Lucy decides to get revenge on Zhang, so she goes to his hotel and takes out all of his men. Zhang is wearing headphones, listening to music, unaware of what's happening. When Lucy enters, she makes the girl with him leave and then sits across from him. She takes out 2 knives and stabs them into his hands. She then places her hand on his head, uses her powers to enter his mind, and sees images of the plane tickets for the 3 men with the drugs in their stomachs, learning which countries they went to. Lucy leaves, leaving Zhang screaming in pain. She goes to her friend Carol's house to use her computer and searches for articles about the evolution of the human mind until she finds Dr. Norman's research. She calls him, introduces herself, and tells him she has read all of his research. Norman is surprised and says that's impossible. She tells him her mind is developing rapidly and that the cells in her body are multiplying at an astonishing rate. She explains that she ingested a large amount of CPH4 and is currently using 28% of her brain's capacity, and the percentage is constantly increasing. Because of what happened, she no longer feels hunger or pain and can control her body's cells and the people around her. In addition, she can control energy on a large scale. Suddenly, she appears on his TV screen, his laptop, and his phone. She tells him she was able to understand a vast amount of science and knowledge in various fields in a short amount of time, giving examples in mathematics, medicine, physics, and space science. She continues, saying she doesn't know what to do with the amount of knowledge and information she has. He tells her the best thing to do is to record everything and hand it over to a trusted source. They agree to meet in 12 hours so she can give him a copy of the theories and research she has learned. After ending the call with Norman, she prints a medical prescription, gives it to Carol, and tells her to follow it because her liver is in a late stage of failure. She tells her to change her eating and drinking habits, and she will get better in a short time. Lucy leaves her friend, who is shocked by her words. Lucy then goes to the airport to travel to France. At the same time, Her photo is shown on the news, and the newscaster says the police are hunting her after she killed the patient at the hospital. Lucy changes her hairstyle and hair color so no one will recognize her. She calls a French police officer named Rio and tells him to pick up a red pen and write down the information she's about to give him. At this point, we learn that her mental capacity has reached 30%. Rio is confused, but she reassures him she's not using surveillance cameras and promises he'll understand everything in due time. She tells him about the drug bags smuggled inside the 3 people who will arrive in 3 different European countries, one of them in France. She gives him all their information and sends him their photos, telling him that the drugs inside their bodies are extremely dangerous. Rio quickly contacts Interpol and coordinates with the authorities in the 3 countries Lucy mentioned. They are able to arrest the 3 individuals as soon as they arrive at the airports. As Lucy is on the plane, she writes down all the information she has learned on a laptop at a tremendous speed. A flight attendant asks her to turn off her devices and fasten her seatbelt because they are about to land. Lucy ignores her and asks for an alcoholic drink, telling her to wipe her bleeding nose without even looking at her. The flight attendant's nose immediately begins to bleed. The drink arrives, and Lucy drinks it, celebrating her newfound knowledge. However, the alcohol interacts with the substance in her body, and her mental capacity reaches 40%. As she lowers the glass, she sees her teeth in the drink. 3 of her teeth fall out, and her skin begins to dissolve. She runs to the bathroom, locks herself in, and her fingers and face also dissolve. She takes the bag of drugs from her purse, eats a large amount, and her body calms down and returns to normal. However, a powerful energy bursts from her body, and she loses consciousness. At this point, Lucy reaches 50% of her mental capacity. A little later, she wakes up in a hospital. Officer Rio is waiting for her with the doctor supervising her treatment. A nurse tells them Lucy is awake. When she leaves the room, she finds Rio and a large number of police officers pointing their guns at her. With a single gesture, everyone except Rio falls to the ground and passes out. Lucy approaches him, empties the bullets from his gun, and ignores his state of confusion. She asks him about the drugs. He tells her the 3 people are in the hospital and that they will have surgery to remove the drugs from their bodies. However, Lucy says she wants the drugs and tells him she needs his help. She takes him, and they get in his car. Lucy uses her powers and is able to spy on a call between Zhang and his assistant G. She learns that Zhang's men are going to the hospital where the 3 people are to retrieve the bags of drugs. She drives Rio's car recklessly and at high speed. When she notices Rio's surprise, she tells him it's her first time driving a car. On the other side, G and his men arrive at the hospital, kill all the police officers guarding the 3 people, then kill the people themselves and extract the bags of drugs from their bodies. But as they leave, they find Lucy in front of them. At this point, her mind has reached 60% of its capacity. She creates an invisible barrier in front of G so he can't escape with the drugs. She then controls his men, making their weapons stick to the ceiling. She gestures with her hands, pushing the men out of her way until she reaches G, completely immobilizing him. She takes the bag of drugs from him and leaves with Rio. As they get in the car, Rio asks her where they are going. Suddenly, the GPS in the car shows him the address. At the same time, Zhang sees them and follows them with his men. It appears that Lucy is going to meet Norman at the university. Norman is waiting for her with a group of his colleagues. When Lucy arrives, one of the doctors asks her to show them her powers. She places her hand on his shoulder and tells him about an old memory he had with his daughter. At that moment, Lucy senses Zhang's men and knows they have arrived. She asks Rio to go out and deal with them and prevent them from reaching her at all costs. Lucy then begins to explain everything she has discovered to Norman and his colleagues after she was able to cross the barrier of human mental capacity. At that moment, Zhang and his men open fire on the security guards, and a huge commotion breaks out. Lucy gives Norman the drugs she has and asks him to turn them into a liquid and inject it into her. This causes her mental capacity to increase and reach 70%. Her body turns into a black substance and spreads around all the devices and equipment in the room. She can control everything around her and pulls everything in the room towards her. Suddenly, Norman and his colleagues find themselves in an empty, white space. Lucy creates a giant computer out of the same black substance. At the same time, the police arrive and clash with Zhang's gang, but G fires a rocket at the door of the room where Lucy is, destroying it. In that same instant, Lucy teleports to another place. With one movement of her hand, she controls time and stops it. She then goes back in time, passing through all of human history until she reaches the Stone Age, where she sees a monkey drinking from a lake in front of her. Lucy then flies into the sky, leaves Earth, and explores the entire universe, gaining limitless power. At this point, Lucy reaches 99% of her mental capacity. Zhang enters the room and raises his weapon at Lucy, but her mental capacity reaches 100%. Her body completely turns black and suddenly disappears in front of everyone. Zhang is furious because he finds himself shooting at Lucy's clothes. He keeps asking Norman and his colleagues where she went, but Rio appears behind him and kills him. The black substance then emerges from the computer and gives Norman a flash drive. As soon as Norman takes the flash drive, the computer completely collapses and disappears. Norman looks at the flash drive in disbelief because it contains all of Lucy's research and discoveries about the universe in various fields. Norman and his colleagues are shocked and can't comprehend what happened, but Rio interrupts them and asks about Lucy. He receives a message from Lucy on his phone that says, "I am everywhere." Rio looks around and understands that Lucy sacrificed her physical existence to give humanity infinite information about the universe.